Let's bring in GOP Senator Tom Cotton. He sits on the Senate Armed Services Committee, where he is chair. Senator, your thoughts about what we know so far. What's your overriding question?
Well, Brian, this is a terrible tragedy. My prayers go out to the victims and the families and all the first responders who are still working on recovery efforts. Obviously, it's still very early in this tragedy. The sun has not even risen yet over Washington, D.C. after this nighttime accident. There are a lot of questions to be asked. I don't want to jump to conclusions on them, though, but there'll be a lot of researching and investigating into what exactly happened to be sure that we have all the answers for the American people, and obviously that something like this can never happen again.
Have you gotten a high-level briefing yet?
I have not. That's not unusual. Again, it happened last night around most people's bedtime. I did happen to speak with the president shortly after the incident. He was following it closely. Obviously, he was distraught over the loss of life as well. But I know that he and his team are monitoring the situation and deploying all resources they can to help local authorities in the Washington, D.C. area.
Senator, you're just telling me this just underlines the speed in which we have to confirm the president's nominees. OMB, we saw the miscommunication coming out of that office that led to the suspending some of the spending thing that they were talking about. And now we have Sean Duffy gets the job at transportation. 2 hours later, he's in the middle of a crisis. That underlines the importance of today's hearing, which you'll chair with Tulsi Gabbard as she efforts to become the next leader of the DNI. What should we know about Tulsi Gabbard's nomination?
I support Tulsi Gabbard's nomination. I've been working with her to move towards confirmation, and I look forward to working with her for 4 years for the badly needed reforms in our intelligence community. Our intelligence community has grown too bloated, too bureaucratic. It doesn't do enough collection of intelligence. It focuses on way too many secondary priorities that are better served in other parts of the government. Tulsi Gabbard understands this. She spent more than 20 years in uniform serving our nation. She's ready to serve again in this position, and I look forward to the hearing today where she can explain her views, her plans, her policies for the Office of the Director of National Intelligence to make sure that our nation's leaders have the intelligence we need to make critical national security decisions.
Going in, have you made a decision on whether you will you support her?
Yes, I support Tulsi Gabbard's nomination, and I'm looking forward to working with her for the next 4 years together to work on those reforms at the Office of the Director of National Intelligence.
What does her past views have to do with her getting this position? And what should we keep in mind if people look at her past and say that seems to be counter to what President Trump has done in the past or what we've done in the past, whether it's relations with Syria, her views on NATO, the taking out of Soleimani? A lot of that is counter to what Donald Trump has done and said.
Well, as we've seen with all these nominees, like Robert Kennedy yesterday, sometimes they do have views opposed to what President Trump has said or campaigned on, or in Mr. Kennedy's case, they campaigned against him and said some pretty tough things about him. But as Mr. Kennedy said yesterday, it's the president's administration. He'll advise, the president decides. Same thing with Ms. Gabbard. She was a former Democratic congresswoman. I know her well. We were elected together to the House of Representatives in 2012, but she understands that it's the president's administration. She'll always give her best advice, but the president will make decisions. When it comes to reforming the law, it will be Congress that writes the law, and the president will sign the law. She'll implement it. I think that there's instances where you're going to have a lot of Democrats critical of her today because she finally saw the light and left the Democratic Party and came over to the Republican side.
Senator, is there a chance that you'll postpone this today, or is this going to go off?
No, we need to move ahead with these hearings. I think the fact that we confirmed Sean Duffy to be Secretary of Transportation just hours before this horrific tragedy outside of Washington, D.C., shows why these hearings and votes are important. We need politically accountable and responsible officials at the heads of these departments. You never know when a moment of crisis will strike. Last night it was with the Department of Transportation. Next week it could be with another cabinet department or agency. It's important that we move forward promptly with all these nominations so we have responsible and politically accountable officials leading these government departments and agencies doing their vital work.
And your advice to Tulsi, keep your cool. It looks like they're going to go after her personally, just like they did RFK, just like they did with Pete Hegseth.
Unfortunately, I think they may. There's a lot of unfair accusations in the press. Hillary Clinton has even questioned her patriotism, call her an asset of a foreign country. I understand people that may have differences with Ms. Gabbard. She has a long voting record of 8 years in the House. We didn't vote together on a lot of issues, but I hope no one questions her patriotism, her integrity, her loyalty to our country. After all, she has served more than 20 years in our nation's uniform. She's undergone 5 background checks. I reviewed the latest one last week, more than 300 pages. It's clean as a whistle. It is perfectly fine and appropriate to probe and explore different policy views. No one should be questioning Tulsi Gabbard's patriotism.
Yeah, she's a great person, and she has great composure and great communications, and I think we'll see that today. Kash Patel is also up, and his his hearings will begin today, too, and RFK comes back for another round. Thanks so much, Senator.
Thank you, Brian.